Alright, hello. This is a redone version of my C++ binding action input with parameters video tutorial that I did with Unreal Engine 4 a little while ago, because that one was very all over the place and I was really tired when I did that and so forth. And I'm still tired, but I think I got enough energy to do a better one. If it's better, then I'll upload it. If not, oh well, you're stuck with the old one for now. So as before, I have the inputs already set up. The use key, the equip buttons. So equip 1, 2, and 3. And then it will print out, oh, we equipped 1, 2, 3, so forth. The use button will print out like an object within the world's name, an actor, or whatever. I already have Visual Studio open, but just to let you know, I'm using the third-person character example project. I went into my C++ classes and I just opened up the character and I cleared out a bunch of the VR and touchscreen stuff and then just kind of organized it in regions. So yeah, I did this and yeah, just made it a little bit more organized. Alright, so let's get started. First, we need to BeginPlay, because I'm going to show you how to bind the parameter to your input when BeginPlay happens and when setup player input component happens. By the way, if you ever have it just say input component and you're getting some weird warning or error, just change the name, because it's having an issue where you have a variable inside of the pawn class that is literally named input component. And if you're having a parameter like that, it's just called shadowing and it's causing issues. All you have to do is just change the name from input component to like this, the way Epic did, which is just player input component. Alright? And just use that when you're inside the function. When you're outside the function, use the input component, which I will also show you. So first, we're going to create BeginPlay inside of public, because why not? It's just a tutorial. So virtual void BeginPlay override. And we also need an actor, which I'm just going to put in public, which is going to be a pointer actor, which is our test actor for the name. So uProperty edit anywhere category, we'll just do test. Alright, and it'll be an actor, and we'll name this variable test actor. There we go. Alright, under protected, let's put it inside of here. So we're going to use all of these. Both of these should have ufunction, because when they're getting bound with Unreal's Delegate system, it goes through their reflection system as well. So you should have the ufunction above it just in case if the API ever changes and it requires it or it doesn't, so forth. So ufunction doesn't need to have anything in it, just needs to have it above it so Unreal's reflection system can see the function. Then we're going to create the void use actor, and it's going to take a parameter of an actor pointer, and we're going to call it in actor. Okay, and what we're just doing here is when we use it, we print out the name. That's it inside of this function. And we're going to create another one function, another u function, which will be equip weapon or equip item. And we're going to input an integer, so an int. Let's do 8. Yeah. Oh wait, no. Actually, yeah. Let's just leave it at int, so that way for the tutorial series. Item to equip. Let's name it that. And then we're going to also use a second parameter, which will be a boolean, and we'll just call it success. But we're not going to actually use it. This is just to show that we can input multiple values into the parameters using this method for our binding for the inputs. And for now, this is just going to be these two. We're going to be adding another function later that's going to help automate some of this, so that way we don't have to copy and paste too much, and it's not going to be huge chunks of code, but it's just to get the idea across. Alright, so First, let's go into, let's create our definition. I'm going to use Visual Studio's handy create definition option for both of these, just to speed up the process. Okay. Yeah, so let's fill out use actor first. Right, so, but first, what we need is an include file for us to be able to actually, print out the name. So include engine /engine.h. And this has the G engine in it, so we can just print it out. And we're going to go inside of the use actor function right here. And we're going to check if it's valid by going if in actor. And we can leave it alone like this, and they'll check if it's valid or not. But since this is a tutorial, we can do not. We're going to do not equals and then null. Okay. Then, after the valid check, I'm just going to copy and paste my little notes here, because it's a lot and I don't want to type it out. But you can copy and paste this, pause the video if you want. All it's doing is getting the G engine, which we wouldn't get it if we didn't have the include file at the top, which has access to this and this function and so forth. Okay. So, yeah. Alright, so you copy and pasted it or wrote it out or whatever, good. Now we're going to go into the setup player input component. We're going to add in some brackets to make some variables that are temporary for inside this function. It's just a little performance trick. If you want some variables that you're only going to use for like this certain chunk of code, you just place these brackets, and then after the brackets get reached, then it gets deleted, so you don't have to deal with them. Or they get kept, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just a little performance help. So, first, what we need to bind these actions with parameters is we need an action handler, which is our delegate. So f input action handler signature, not the dynamic version, just the regular version, because the other version isn't what we want. Okay, and we're going to name it action handler. Alright, let's put a comment above this saying we created the delegate to connect with our input binding. Alright. Next, what we need to do is actually bind this delegate to a function. Because if you remember if you're coming from blueprints, I should have had a blueprint open, hang on. Okay. Drag that over. A delegate is just an event dispatcher, but much fancier and helpful and better than event dispatchers. This is true. But anyway, so we're going to bind that to a function. So action handler dot bind ufunction, and then we're going to input the object, which what we're doing at this point is this actually not that, this half of the bind action function, but inside of here. So we're going to do this, and instead of doing a character, colon, we actually have to put in the exact name of the function. So what we're going to do is text, and the reason why we use text instead of fname is because text handles with Unicode text and stuff like that. So this is a much better version of, fname and stuff like that in C++ land. Alright, so the function that we're using in this case is going to be the use actor. Where is it? Yeah. So we're just going to copy that name, paste it inside of here. Also, these are all organized and placed away so that we don't have to look at them and worry about it, because we're not going to use them. Anyway, next. This is the part where we input the parameter, and it has to be a value of something, a variable or a number or whatever. So if the parameter is an integer, in this case, like here, or a boolean, we would actually put like a number, or we would put true or false, or a variable. It has to have something and put it in. You can't just leave it, well, you could actually leave it null if you already have it preset and so forth, but this is just to get the idea across. So in this case, it will be test actor. And there we go, we have the delegate set up. Now we need to get the input, which is this half of our little setup. So we're going to use an f input action binding. Okay, make sure the naming is correct, and we're going to name this action binding. And let's comment this. So we're preparing the input binding. Also, let's comment this. So all we did was set the delegate to the use actor function and input test actor variable. This is just for tutorial reasons. I usually don't type out that kind of stuff. I usually just kind of go general with my stuff. Like in this case up here, prints the actor's name on screen in red for 2 seconds. You know, I would also put like up here, valid check. Anyway, next we need to actually get the input from the input settings. This is where we go and type in action binding dot action name, and we set it to text because it's asking for an f name, which we're going to use text. And we jump back to Unreal, go to project settings, action mappings, and get the input, which in this case is going to be use. It has to be case sensitive. And we just paste it in there. And then action binding dot key event is the pressed or released type thing, which is IE underscore pressed. Alright. Then this is the part where we connect the action handler to the action binding. And we could have done this at any time, but I'm just doing it in organization so it keeps it a little bit understandable. So action binding dot action delegate. There it is. Yeah. And we just set it to our action handler. Alright. Let's comment this as well. Connect the delegate with the input. Now, we have this all connected. How do we actually have it run, and the input component works and such? So, all we have to do is player input component pointer and then add action binding. And then we just input the action binding right here. So these are both structs that have like different functionalities for different things, So once they're combined together, then we can actually use the action binding and bind it. And at this point, this has occurred. But when does this actually occur? When does set up player input component? It happens on BeginPlay, which I also forgot to add the definition for. So let's add it. Create definition. There we go. And let's also include the super call, so super begin play. There we go. But begin play happens and it will call this function automatically. And that runs this code. So if our test actor isn't valid, then it will not actually connect with it because it has to be valid. Otherwise, nothing happens. But if it is valid when we begin play, then it will run. And let's actually test that now, before we run on to the equip item such. But what we're doing here is just a switch case of 1, 2, and 3. So in this case, I'm going to copy and paste. Alright. Because that's all we're doing is inside that function, we're just printing out an equip 1, 2, and 3, so forth, in red, green, and purple so we can see it. And I will give you a few seconds to copy and paste that. Alright. Now let's go into Unreal and let's compile. Actually, no, wait. Before we actually do that, when we compile, once we want to run the function of equip item, we're going to have to pretty much copy and paste all of this at the same, like 3 times over in BeginPlay if we want to bind it, or if you have it somewhere else within your code where you want to run equip item, and then you want to input the item to equip and success and so forth, you would have to copy and paste all of that, which is not fun. So, how do we fix this? Well, we can actually just do this anywhere. We can create a function that handles that for us and input what we want to change. So, in this case, we're going to create another function inside of our header. I'm going to do uFunction above this as well, just in case. So void, and we're going to call this bind action bindings. There we go. And what we're going to input is an f input action handler signature. So we're going to input the delegate, but we're going to input the direct reference. We're going to pass it in, and we're going to name it handler, and we're going to also input an f name, and we're going to name it action name. So at this point, what we need to input is just a handler, which is just these 2 lines of code, and then this thing right here, that name. And everything else we're going to handle on our own. Obviously, if you want more functionality and features, you would add those into the parameters, and then you would just have it do all that for you, which in this case we're too lazy to do. Well, I am, but you should understand hopefully what to do at this point. So we're going to create our definition. Alright, and in this case I'm going to just copy it from my notes and paste it because I'm a little bit lazy, but this is the way I would have just typed it out anyway, so, and I'll explain this. So first, we're creating our action binding like we did here. Okay, so ignore this half right here, just focus on this portion. So we're creating our action binding. Alright, then we're giving it the action name, which is our inputted name. Then we set the key event to be pressed, which, we want it to happen when it's pressed. Then our delegate, which is our handler. Alright, and then we're using the input component. Remember how I said earlier, if your parameter, if you're getting some weird shadowing or warning error involving the input component, this is what I meant. This is a component variable. This is a variable within our actor that is input component. And if we have a parameter that says input component instead of player input component, we would get warnings or errors maybe. Alright? But this you would also want to check if it was valid, but for the tutorial I'm just doing it like this. Alright? So, now all we have to do in BeginPlay, since all we're doing is going to be binding it to this function, alright? Let me get my notes. I'll copy one of these so you can see what I have to do. So, BeginPlay, I did the thing where I separated out brackets so I can make my little temp variables, my little temporary variables, or local variables. The function name is incorrect for some reason. Yeah, I missed an S. But yeah, so all we did was create the action handler at this point, and then we bound the delegate to the function, and we inputted the variable 1 for its integer, which is item to equip, and then we inputted true for the boolean, even though it doesn't matter, we just needed to input something. We could input false, it doesn't matter. But the name has to be correct with equip item. And then this is the name of the input inside of our project settings, which is input or equip 1. So if we jump back, so now, since I know it's just going to be equip 1, 2, and 3, I can just copy and paste this down here twice, and then just change the number to 2 and to 3. Alright, save. And pretty much we set it up in the switch statement where it runs case 1, it'll print out item equipped number 1, item equipped number 2 if the item equals a value of 2. If it equals a value of 3, then it will print this out. And if it doesn't equal any of these, then it will go to default and get out of the switch statement. Which, that's just generally something you should know to do with the switch statement. So, at this point, we've done everything we wanted. Now we can go into Unreal and hit compile. What is this error you're telling me? Unrecognized F input signature must be U class struct or enum. Oh, whoops. Yes, because I forgot. So, if we go to the declaration of F input action handler signature, it doesn't really have a U struct or anything like that above it. If it doesn't have a U struct above it, it'll give you an error saying you can't use that in a function, so all we have to do is remove the U function above it. And then if we jump back, let me actually close the other one. There we go. Alright, there we go, see? And now you got another nugget of wisdom. So, third person character. If we type in test, because that was the category that we put the pointer into, it's currently null, so nothing is selected. So, if I hit play, and I press the E key, which was our use button, nothing happens. Now if I hit escape, and pick the actor from a scene, I'll pick that cube, and press E, hey, it prints it up. But, what if I do it at runtime? So if I hit play, I unpossess, I select him, and I select a random object, let's pick that. And I possess him, I press E, nothing happens. That's because we have to rebind the input again. So, if you're going to do it at runtime, make sure you have the variable as valid before you do it. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. Also, if we press 1 on the keyboard, item equip 1, number 2, 3, yay! Whoops. 1, 2, 3, yay! So, now that we have that, we have our input being bound dynamically, which is always a good thing. I hope this tutorial was helpful and much better explained than the previous version that I did. I'm going to delete the previous version, and I'm going to link to Orpheus's document about explaining this, probably even better than I am, which is probably true. It's his own little thing that I found, and I thought it would be helpful for everyone else. So, I hope you have a good day. Bye.